My name is Lisa K. Langley. I am 36 years old, married 8 years, together 12, no kids, 2 solid incomes, a house we bought 3 years ago that I pay the mortgage on. On paper, we look stable. In real life, my husband has been unhappy for a long time and made sure I knew it. He has always had a sharp edge, but over the last year, it turned mean. Every conversation felt like a performance review. I was failing, how I loaded the dishwasher, how I breathed when I slept, how my job was safe, but not ambitious, how I should try harder to be interesting, like the men he works with. He would say things casually and then act confused when I reacted. If I pushed back, he would say I was being sensitive. If I stayed quiet, he would say I was checked out. There was no winning position. 2 weeks ago, we had another late-night fight in the kitchen. Same script. He accused me of being emotionally unavailable. I said I was tired of being spoken to like a defective appliance. He crossed his arms, leaned back against the counter, and delivered it with that tone he uses when he thinks he is being very mature. He said maybe we should take a 1-week break to work on ourselves. He said space would help him get clarity. He said it was not about anyone else. He said couples do this all the time. I looked at him and felt something detach. Not anger, not panic, just clarity. I said, okay. No arguing, no pleading, no questions. He packed an overnight bag and said he would stay with a friend. He reminded me not to text unless it was important. Then he left. That was night 1. I slept better than I'd had in months. The house was quiet. My phone stayed face down. I told myself I would actually use the time to work on myself. I did not yet know how literal that would become. Day 2 started quiet in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. I worked from home and actually finished things before noon. No passive-aggressive sighs from the kitchen. No commentary about my posture or how much coffee I was drinking. The house felt neutral instead of charged, like it wasn't waiting for me to mess something up. Around midday, I checked my phone out of habit. Nothing from him. That tracked with the rules he'd set. Space, independence, working on ourselves. At 3 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed. Not a text, a notification. A mutual coworker of his had tagged a group at a new restaurant downtown. I wouldn't have noticed if my husband's face hadn't been right there in the photo, front and center. Big smile, cocktail in hand, the kind he only ordered when he was trying to look fun. Across from him sat a woman I recognized immediately, his coworker, the one he said was harmless, the one he said was annoying, the one he compared me to during arguments without ever saying her name. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. It was just dinner. People eat dinner. Except he had been very clear that the break was about solitude and reflection, except the caption wasn't subtle. Something about much-needed reset energy with laughing emojis, and he had liked the post within minutes. I didn't text him. I didn't comment. I didn't ask for explanations. I closed the app and sat there letting the last year replay itself in order. The complaints, the comparisons, the way he dressed differently for work events, the way he guarded his phone, the way he framed me as the obstacle to his happiness. By that evening, he posted again. Same restaurant, different angle. This time just the plates and 2 glasses of wine. No attempt to hide it. No attempt to check if I could see it. Almost like he wanted me to. That was the moment I understood the break was not about growth. It was about permission. Permission to try on a different life while keeping me as the safety net. I didn't feel jealous. I felt finished. I opened my laptop and started a list. Accounts, assets, timelines. I pulled up our mortgage documents. I pulled up my bank statements. I looked at what was joint and what wasn't. I didn't rush. I was calm, focused, clinical. He wanted a week to work on himself. I decided to work on myself too, just not in the way he expected. The next morning, I woke up early and went for a long walk. No music, no podcasts, just letting the reality settle. By the time I got back, the decision was already made. I wasn't going to confront him. I wasn't going to ask for reassurance. I wasn't going to wait around pretending this was mutual growth. I was going to act. Before noon, I had already shifted from emotion to structure. I called a divorce attorney and asked for a consultation. I didn't dramatize it. I explained the facts plainly. Married 8 years, together 12, no kids, shared house, 2 incomes, possible infidelity, not confirmed. He asked what outcome I wanted. I said clean and fast. He said that was realistic. He told me not to move out and not to warn my husband. He said people reveal their real behavior when they believe they're in control. I thanked him and scheduled the next appointment. After that call, I opened a new checking account in my name only and redirected my paycheck. I didn't drain joint funds. I didn't punish him financially. I just stopped adding to the pool he assumed would always refill itself. I paused discretionary spending that benefited both of us. Streaming services, the gym membership he insisted on but never used, the cleaning service he wanted but never scheduled himself. I copied important documents and stored them digitally, mortgage statements, deeds, insurance, tax returns. I changed passwords and turned on two-factor authentication everywhere. Banking, email, cloud storage. It wasn't anger driving me. It was precision. That afternoon, he texted for the first time since leaving. Casual, asked how I was doing, said he hoped I was using the time productively. I replied that I was, nothing more. He reacted with a heart emoji. That annoyed me more than the photos. It told me he thought he still had access to me without accountability. That evening, he posted again. A different bar. Low lighting, music. The caption suggested freedom. I stopped watching after that. I didn't need more confirmation. Before bed, I packed a small box of personal items he'd left around the house and set it aside. Not out of spite. Out of preparation. I slept well again. By day 3, he still thought he was in control of the narrative. He thought I was home waiting, working on myself in the way he approved of. He had no idea the week was already over for me. Day 4 is where the tone shifted. He came by the house unannounced in the afternoon. I was on a work call when I heard the door open. No knock, no text, just that familiar assumption that access hadn't changed. He walked into my office doorway and leaned against the frame, scanning the room like he was looking for proof of something. I muted my call and told him I was working. He didn't leave. He said the house felt different. I said I'd cleaned. He rolled his eyes and said he meant energetically. He asked why I seemed so calm. Said it worried him. He asked if I'd been stalking his social media. I said no. That irritated him more than if I'd said yes. Then he flipped it. He said the break was clearly affecting me badly. Said I should talk to someone. Said I was shutting down instead of growing. He made my lack of reaction sound like a flaw. I reminded him the break was his idea and that I was respecting it. He said space didn't mean cold. I said it meant separate. He scoffed and accused me of twisting things. He asked if I was angry. I said no. He asked if I was jealous. I said no. He asked if I even cared. I said I was handling my side. That's when he snapped. He said I was acting superior. Said this was why he needed space in the first place. Before he left, he made a comment about how easy it was for him to feel desired again. He said it casually, like a joke meant to sting. I didn't react. I told him we would talk after the week was over and asked him to respect my work hours. He left frustrated and slammed the door hard enough to rattle the wall. I emailed my attorney an update and added the visit to my notes with time and behavior. By the end of day 4, it was clear his usual tactics weren't working, and that realization made him louder. Day 5 started with boundary testing, an early morning text asking if I wanted to grab coffee and talk things through like adults. I didn't reply. An hour later, he texted again saying he was worried about me and that ignoring him was unhealthy. I let it sit. Around noon, he called twice. I declined both. Then came the long message. He said he felt punished. Said the break was supposed to be mutual and constructive, said I was being cold and vindictive, said he was starting to feel like I didn't even want to be married. I read it once and archived the thread. I had a meeting with my attorney that afternoon and wanted my head clear. The meeting was straightforward. We finalized the initial filing paperwork. He explained timelines and service. He asked if I was sure. I said yes without hesitation. He nodded and said we'd move forward. That evening, I closed one of the joint credit cards in my name. I paid the balance first. Clean. I updated passwords again, enabled alerts, tightened access. Not angry, thorough. He showed up again that night, softer this time. Eyes glossy, voice low. He said he missed me. Said the break was harder than he expected. Said he felt disconnected and scared. He stepped closer, the way he always did when he wanted reassurance. I stepped back. I told him this wasn't a good time and that he should respect the space he asked for. He asked if there was someone else. I said no. He asked if I still loved him. I said I was focusing on practical matters. That answer ended the performance. The softness vanished. He accused me of stonewalling. Said I was emotionally abusive. Said any therapist would agree. I told him to leave. He left crying and angry. Later, he texted that he couldn't believe how heartless I was being. I slept deeply that night because for the first time in years, I wasn't being pulled back into chaos. By the end of day 5, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was deciding. Day 6 is when consequences stopped being theoretical. I was in the middle of my workday when my attorney emailed to confirm the filing had been submitted and service was scheduled. No dramatic language, just paperwork moving forward. I felt relief more than anything else, the kind that settles in your chest when a decision becomes real. By mid-afternoon, my phone started lighting up. Missed calls, texts, voicemails. He had been served at work, not at home, where he could control the reaction. Right there in front of people whose opinions mattered to him. His first message accused me of blindsiding him. Said this was not what the break was for. Said he never agreed to this. The second message was anger. How dare I embarrass him? How dare I do this without a conversation? The third message flipped to panic. Asked if I was serious. Asked if we could slow down and talk. I didn't respond. An hour later, he showed up at the house furious. He yelled through the door before I even opened it. Said I was cruel. Said I was calculating. Said this proved everything he ever felt about me. I opened the door just long enough to tell him he needed to leave and communicate through attorneys from now on. He tried to push past me. I blocked the doorway. Calm, steady. Told him this was no longer a discussion. That's when he went low. He brought up my family, my job. Said no one would ever want someone as emotionally dead as me. Said I would regret this when I was alone. I told him he had a place to stay and that I would not fund a second life for him anymore. I reminded him the break was his request. I closed the door. That night, screenshots started arriving from mutual acquaintances. His social media posts were gone. The restaurant photos deleted. The stories removed. Damage control had begun. He texted late asking if we could reset and start the week over. Said he made mistakes. Said he felt stupid. Said he still loved me. I archived the thread and went to bed. By day 6, he finally understood I wasn't reacting. I was deciding, and there was nothing left for him to negotiate. Day 7 arrived quietly. The week he asked for was technically over, but for me, it had ended days ago. He texted early, asking when we were talking. Said we needed closure. Said couples who survive this kind of thing communicate. Said he felt discarded. I didn't reply. Instead, I spent the morning doing practical things. I met with my bank and adjusted automatic payments. The mortgage stayed covered. Utilities stayed on. Everything else that quietly funded his comfort stopped. Clean lines, no drama. I documented it all. Around noon, he tried a different angle. A long message about accountability. He admitted he might have crossed lines. He said he never technically cheated. He said I was overreacting to social media. He said a mature wife would have talked it through instead of running to lawyers. That message didn't hurt, it clarified. He reframed my response as impulsive and his behavior as reasonable. He framed my boundaries as punishment and his choices as harmless. That pattern was our marriage in a sentence. I replied for the first time all week. I told him the break exposed choices, not mistakes. I told him I acted based on information he made public. I told him communication ended when respected. I told him future contact would be through attorneys. He exploded. Accusations, insults, bargaining. He said I was controlling. He said I wanted to punish him. He said he was allowed to feel desired. He said I was insecure and boring and predictable. He said the coworker meant nothing, and then said men like him reminded him what he gave up. That contradiction sealed it. I blocked his number. That evening, I sat in the living room and looked around the house. It felt bigger without tension, quieter without commentary. I realized how much energy I had been spending managing his moods. The week was over, not just the break, the marriage. And for the first time, that truth felt like relief, not loss. The fallout didn't come all at once. It came in waves. Day 8 was logistics. His attorney reached out politely to coordinate a time for him to retrieve personal belongings with a third party present. I agreed. No surprises, no scenes. He showed up with his sister. No eye contact, no apology. Tight smiles, forced efficiency. He packed clothes, shoes, personal items. He avoided the office and the garage. He hesitated at the guest room door like he expected to stay there. He didn't ask. At one point, he tried to make small talk, asked how work was going. I didn't engage. His sister looked uncomfortable. That wasn't my problem. When they were done, I handed him the box I'd prepared days earlier. He looked surprised and said I'd been planning this longer than he thought. I said I planned once I had enough information. He asked to talk privately. I said no. He rolled his eyes and said figures. He followed me to the door anyway and said he never thought I'd actually leave. He said he thought I'd fight harder. He said every woman he dated before would have begged. I told him that was the difference. He said I was throwing away years over one bad week. I said it wasn't 1 week, it was the first honest one. He said I'd regret being alone. I said I already felt less alone than I had in years. He left without another word. That night, mutual friends reached out confused, asking what happened. I kept it brief. We separated. It was necessary. I didn't defend myself or attack him. The truth didn't need marketing. The house was quieter than ever, empty but not hollow. For the first time, I could imagine a future that didn't require constant self-justification. That realization weighed more than any argument we ever had. By day 9, opinions had formed outside of us. Some thought I was harsh. Some thought I finally grew a spine. A few reached out quietly to say they weren't surprised. I paid attention to that last group. He tried one final angle through email. Long, carefully written. Therapy language everywhere. He acknowledged harm without admitting intent. He said he was willing to cut contact with the coworker. He said he wanted to rebuild trust. He said he felt unsafe with how quickly I pulled away. I read it once and forwarded it to my attorney. Trust didn't break when he went to dinner. It broke when he framed disrespect as self-discovery. It broke when he tested how far he could go while expecting me to stay steady and grateful. That evening, I met a friend for a drink. For the first time in months, I did something social without checking in or preparing for fallout. He asked how I was holding up. I told him the truth. I felt clear. He nodded and said clarity usually looks cold to people who benefit from confusion. When I got home, I walked through the house again, this time not taking inventory but imagining change. New routines, new energy, maybe selling, maybe staying. Options felt open instead of threatening. I slept deeply. A few weeks later, the paperwork kept moving. The house stayed calm. I changed the locks, not out of fear, but out of finality. I started cooking again, sleeping better, thinking clearly. Looking back, the most revealing part wasn't the restaurant photos or the coworker or even the insults when he lost control. It was the assumption. He assumed I would wait. He assumed I would negotiate my dignity. He assumed that a break meant freedom for him and suspension for me. When he said, "Let's take a week to work on ourselves," he meant exploration for him and patience from me. I agreed to the words, not the unspoken contract underneath them. I did work on myself. I stopped tolerating contempt dressed up as honesty. I stopped confusing patience with self-respect. I stopped auditioning for a role he had already recast. If anyone reading this is in a similar place, here's the only advice I have. When someone asks for space, pay attention to what they do with it, and when their actions answer questions they refuse to say out loud, believe them the first time. I am not angry. I am not bitter. I am done.